Give a warm welcome to Danielle Friedman, Well contributor for the New York Times, and Robin Arzón, Vice President of Fitness Programming and Head Instructor at Peloton, founder of Swagger Society, and Kelly McGonigal, psychologist and author of The Joy of Movement.
Hello, I am Danielle Friedman, and we're here today to talk about moving for joy. And I am so thrilled to be joined on stage by two women who embody that concept. Robin Arzón is the head instructor at Peloton and an endurance athlete who once ran 5 marathons in 5 days. She is also the author of Shut Up and Run and a former corporate lawyer. Over the past decade, through her Peloton workouts, she's built a loyal following, her wolf pack, who keep coming back for her signature uplifting teaching style. Kelly McGonigal is a health psychologist at Stanford who specializes in how mindset can influence our health and well-being. She's the author most recently of The Joy of Movement, which explores how exercise can be a powerful tool for experiencing meaning, hope, and belonging. She's also a group fitness instructor with more than 25 years of experience teaching yoga and cardio fitness, cardio dance. In 2022, she created the Joy Workout for the New York Times. It's so wonderful to welcome you both. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. So great to be here.
Kelly, I feel like we've known each other for some time through several years of interviews. And Robin, I feel as if I know you because you have been in my ear for so many runs and miles and workouts. But I'm delighted to meet you in person. I'd like to start with Robin. So you went from being a corporate lawyer working 80 hours a week to one of the country's most recognizable fitness experts. Can you tell us how you made that career pivot?
Oh gosh, like thousands of tiny inflection points. I used movement initially to heal through trauma. And once I discovered running initially, then spin and strength training, I thought, does everyone else know about this? Everyone else has to know about this. And I started developing what I affectionately call a superhero toolkit. My mom is a Cuban refugee, and she raised me to believe that superheroes and heroines are real. And I really wanted to impart that and share that with the world. And, you know, rooted in community, I was really enveloped in a running community in New York City in those early days when I started doing marathons and ultra marathons, and the 5 marathons in 5 days, as you mentioned, was actually to raise money for MS research. And I have found it's so delightful to go through different stages of one's life and find your people. My mom told me growing up, I was not an athlete as a kid, and my mom told me growing up, stay weird. That's how your people are going to be able to find you. Nobody remembers normalcy, and maybe a subject for a different panel, but that's obviously something that we are able to leverage in business. And I just have to, speaking of community and the different stages, you know, that I've met community through movement, it was postpartum, being a mom. It was healing from trauma and finding a running community. It was finding my fellow Peloton instructors. Allie Love, Marcel Dinkins, and Ash Pryor happen to be in the audience, and we've amassed a team of what I think are 54 superheroes globally across 16 modalities at Peloton, and I'm incredibly powerful to wear a P on my chest. Are there any other Peloton members in the audience? I want to see y'all. I want to hear y'all. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I think it's really powerful when we marry things that are good for us, movement, with the drumbeat of a community that makes you feel like you can step into your full self. And I think selfishly there's such stickiness in that because we're going to be more consistent with our movement practices when we find a movement practice that speaks to us, but also an environment where we can step into that. And I think, long answer to your question of moving from law to wellness is it was made possible because I found my people and I was willing to stay weird.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to realize that for you? You mentioned trauma, that movement could be a path out of fear and anxiety and unhappiness. What did that process look like for you?
Well, I had this very limited view of what mental wellness looked like. For me, it was sitting on a chair that looks like this, talking about, you know, my childhood or whatever. And obviously talk therapy is immensely helpful for many millions. Movement became such a critical piece of my own journey, and it allowed me to step into the storytelling. Like, it was through the runs that I became very aware of how loud that inner voice was and how caustic, like how biting that narrative was. And it was as simple as, you know, you're so this, you're to that, and I was like, wait, who is that? Like, girl, calm down. And I was like, oh, wow, that's me. And I think one of my greatest assets and skill sets is really able to change that self-talk when I don't like what it's saying. And I think movement and mental health minimally at a ground floor level enable us to tune into that conversation and speak to ourselves like we would a friend or a loved one.
So Kelly, your research has explored the link between exercise and mental well-being. I'd love if you could kind of explain the science behind why physical activity can be such a powerful tool for our mental health.
Yeah, so physical activity affects us immediately in terms of our brain chemistry and our blood chemistry in a way that makes us feel better. We often feel more inspired, more hopeful. It changes our brain chemistry in a way that makes it easier to connect with others. We might feel braver. There are also these long-term changes that happen from activity. Being active can change your brain, the structure of your brain, in ways that make you more sensitive and responsive to joy and to social connection, and also more resilient to stress. And that's just the biology of it. That's moving your body in any way that gets your heart rate up a little bit, where you're breathing faster, and especially where you're using your muscles. You know, one of the things I discovered from the science of movement that most inspired me is that when you use your muscles in any form of physical activity, they release these chemicals into your bloodstream that travel to your brain and help relieve stress and increase our capacity to feel good about life. It's like your muscles are this pharmacy, and when you exercise, your body takes care of you. But there's so many other ways that movement affects mental health because of how movement makes us feel. Movement has meaning. When you do something that you never thought you could do before, it changes how you see yourself. Movement puts you outdoors and in nature. It can help us feel like we're connected to life. How we connect to other people, the communities that we build. For me, the type of movement that has the most meaning and joy is dance. And, you know, I discovered that after also not being an athlete growing up. You know, my experience with movement was mostly humiliation. I couldn't do anything that required speed or coordination or athleticism. And then I found aerobics and moving to popular music and then dance. And I realized that movement can also help us access strengths like empathy and emotional sensitivity and the desire to connect with other people. And so one of the ways that I try to create mental health through movement is teaching dance classes every day that help people find a place where they can experience all parts of themselves, including connecting to one another through music.
Yeah, I love that exercise kind of primes, and the way you've talked about it, primes the brain and the body to then be able to experience some of these other benefits, these social benefits, these feelings of connection.
It's funny, you know, when we first started to talk about joy and movement, I like to clarify, a lot of people think that what we're trying to do is help you enjoy movement more, like movement is inherently unpleasant or uncomfortable, and so are there some hacks where we can just enjoy it more, like it more. But I really think about movement as something that can help us access the joy of life, that movement is about using your body to engage with life, and that it can give us an opportunity to experience all of these human joys like mastery and challenge and play and cooperation and competition and connection and nature and music and all of these things. And that's a different way of thinking about movement as a partnership in helping us experience joy in life, rather than something we have to learn to enjoy.
Absolutely, using it as a vehicle to experience joy and pleasure. So you mentioned, you didn't feel like an athlete growing up. It's actually something that you both share, is that you really disliked PE class.
They put me in remedial gym class. I don't even know if that exists anymore. They took us out of regular gym class because we couldn't do the things that other kids could do, just a couple of us.
I relate to not feeling like an athlete for many years. And you had to discover for yourselves what felt good. Robin, for you, it was running initially. Kelly, as you mentioned, I believe it wasn't just aerobics, it was 1980s aerobics workout tapes.
Yes, that my mom bought at garage sales and then never did, so I did them, yeah.
That was your gateway to this amazing career. But I think for so many people, the concept that exercise, finding anything that feels good just feels just so challenging. So I'd love if you could both share some advice for finding a form of movement and sticking with a form of movement that feels good rather than like a chore.
Can I start by defining what feels good means?
Absolutely.
Because for me, feels good doesn't have to mean it feels 100% comfortable and enjoyable in the moment. Sometimes the feeling good is how you feel about yourself afterwards because you persisted and you're exhausted. My sister, who's a runner, she likes to say her favorite part of a run is the part that feels horrible, because when she's doing it, she senses herself as tough. And I think that feeling good can be a form of movement that makes us feel better about life too. I often don't want to exercise before I do it, and people can't believe that. As someone who loves movement as much as I do, I often don't want to do it until I'm doing it, and sometimes it's not till it's almost over that I'm glad I did it. And that can be a form of finding movement that feels good, is checking in, does this make me feel better about myself? Does it make me feel better about life? And does this help me become more the kind of person I want to be in all my other roles and relationships?
That is such an important acknowledgement that I don't think we talk about enough. We're not entitled to feeling good and joyful all the time. I actually think that the entry points to that through movement and workout specifically are earned. There's no way to delegate how to do a push-up. You can read a podcast, you can read a Well article about it, you can get a coach, you can take a Peloton class, but then at some point you just have to jump in the game and do it. And the after effect, befriending that version of yourself that kept showing up, there is no amount of money on that. I call it swagger. Like, you see somebody with pep in their step, they probably took a Peloton Tabata ride that morning, baby. Okay? Like, there is real anecdotal and quantifiable cascades from the consistency of showing up. And granted, if you abhor running, if dancing is not your thing, if Pilates, you run the other direction, okay. But there are lots of different ways to move. And so this is where I would rather reframe it as curiosity rather than a preconceived idea of joy all the time. Get curious. What are you curious about? I would rather be bad at running than good at couch. Right? So, let's just get curious, infuse play, infuse community. We all know about accountability partners. That is very real, right? And now in a virtually connected world, I love seeing somebody in my Peloton leaderboard, then that conversation continues on social, and then those members come into the studio on the weekends, and they have their own meetups and their own hashtags, and it might be a group of 5 people, it might be 5,000 people, or 5 million people, frankly. And these are the ways in which we get curious about movement, and our community becomes a linchpin for the consistency of showing up. Because let me tell you, no matter what movement practice you have, consistency is the real flex. I would rather see what you're willing to do 10,000 times until we're 97 years old and I'm playing Biggie Smalls and Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny at the nursing home than what you're willing to do once that you throttled yourself, after reading a Well article one time on a Saturday morning, right?
It's actually a great segue into the next question I wanted to ask you, which is, you've said that motivation isn't the key to working out, despite probably many, articles that I myself have written. It's momentum. Tell us about this, and what's the distinction?
The distinction is key because motivation is fleeting, it's ephemeral, it's a byproduct of the action. And I think that we can really become self-generating momentum factories. Kelly said there's oftentimes she's not motivated to work out. For me, I am in the motivation business, obviously, but motivation in my daily pursuit is irrelevant. It's habit, it's process, it's schedule, and it's just what I do. And showing up to those moments, I like myself better. And then at the end of the workout, I have more momentum, more motivation for maybe other difficult, gritty things. But that initial phase really is going through, acting as if the person you want to become, surrounding yourself with people whose default behavior is what you aspire to be. You want to lift weights? Hang out with people who lift weights. I was in a hotel gym the other day, and I saw a woman doing a Adrienne Williams strength class, and I popped up behind her, and I was like, you go, girl. And she's like, I was so intimidated to come into this weight room, and I bring you with me. And I'm like, hell yeah. We are your training partners. And, that's really what I want to emphasize, is that it is not about doing things when you feel like it. Would you even be sitting here today if you only did the things you felt like doing? No. And I think that we need to really start to treat our movement practices and put them on our schedule like they're a meeting with an important client, with a stakeholder in your life who matters. Because ultimately you are the CEO of your body, and if you're not running it as seriously as you would run your business or pay your bills, you're really going to be paying in health consequences later in life.
I often think about exercise or movement as a values-based act of courage or risk-taking. And I think that's really where motivation comes in for me, is if you understand how movement can be a way to take care of yourself, a way to connect with others, how it can make you a better version of yourself, the way that I'm braver after I exercise, and that often it does feel a little risky. Our bodies are vulnerable, and we become vulnerable when we move our bodies in public. And a lot of the things that can get in the way of moving, like pain or injury, how we fear other people might judge us, whether we'll be good, all of those things that come into play. If you have an approach to movement that really values it and values yourself, it's easier to take those risks. And that's part of how we get to the commitment, I think, that Robin was talking about.
And Kelly, I wanted to ask you, so in terms of creating that momentum, I think for so many people, the barriers to entry just feel so impossible. And something you've talked to me about before is taking kind of one simple step to create an affect change and to remind yourself that moving feels good. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's this fascinating finding in the research that if you haven't been moving in a while and you move your body for just a couple of minutes, in a way that makes sense for your body, whatever body parts can move and whatever you can do, almost always people feel better. And so this is a great way to access the benefits of movement. For me, it's often just putting on a single song and lip syncing to it. That's movement, and I'll feel better. But it could be going outdoors and stretching. It could be taking your dog for a walk. It could be something that lets you feel your own strength. And test it out. It's a hypothesis that you can experience. Your body will give you data. And if you sense that there's a form of movement where you feel better, more energized, more optimistic, more focused, to then go look for a form of movement that gives you access to something else you want in life. Do you want to be outdoors more often? Do you want to challenge yourself and learn new things? Do you want to compete? Do you want to play? Do you want to make friends? There's a form of movement that will do that.
Can you also briefly speak to the neuroscience of what happens when we move in sync with other people?
Oh yeah, because I love this because it's my favorite form of movement. Yeah, when we move in sync with other people, our bodies enter a state, our brains enter a state that neuroscientists call we mode, like W-E, we mode, as opposed to me mode. And it's a state of synchronization where, like, even if we were just like, I keep nodding my head with your head, our heart rates will synchronize, our breathing rates will align, and our brains start talking to each other in ways that neuroscientists aren't even sure how it's possible. But if you were to put EEGs on our skulls, you would see my brain like reaching into your brain and affecting it, and we enter the state of togetherness that is real, it's biologically real, and we can sense it as a kind of trust and closeness and belonging. And so when we find a community that we can move with, it gives us a chance to feel that sense of connection, and that also builds our capacity to connect with other people, whether it's strangers or family and friends.
I'm curious. I mean, I experience that. The instructors experience that all the time via Peloton, and we will film from New York City and Peloton and Peloton Studios, London, and I'll often hear from members at home like, "How did you know at that point of the run or at that point of the strength workout that I needed to hear it?" And it's like I'm physically experiencing it, and I wonder if proximity in your research is needed, or can it be done virtually?
I was so curious about this too. In my book, I actually used Peloton as an example, and I found a research study that showed that it can work virtually, because I really wanted it to be true.
I want that to be true too. That definitely is what we've experienced.
I'm a big fan of being in person when you can, because there's other things going on too. Like, for example, when you sweat, you release these molecules that can actually transmit emotion. So if you exercise with people who are having a good time or feeling really amazing about themselves, you will like inhale their sweat, and it makes you feel better. I love that there are some things like that that only happen in person, but it's absolutely true that the synchronizing that happens virtually, it creates real, true connection.
Well, we have just a few more minutes, but I would love to ask both of you how you see the connection between physical activity and emotional resilience. Both kind of globally, and maybe how you've experienced that personally.
My mind immediately goes to my two most recent postpartum experiences. I have two young kids, and being able to move my body after having babies was huge for my mental health, for my confidence, from feeling like I was feeling powerless to powerful, and the community of caregivers and folks that are now in my life have been a beautiful reminder of taking that time for ourselves, that self-care is not selfish, and that self-care doesn't need to be one more thing on the to-do list, that I had to reframe kind of where it fit into my world. But the confidence, and this is going to be my plug for strength training, the confidence that I feel after lifting a barbell, after picking up weights, like my husband knows when I've PR'd my deadlift that morning, because I walk into the kitchen like, baby, and I'm not going to apologize for that. And there's no price on that feeling. And some folks might find it through dance. There are thousands of entry points to that feeling, but it's like that inner knowing that like, I've got this. And then your capacity, who's nicer after a workout? Mm-hmm. Literally everyone, okay? I am a kinder person after a workout. I am more willing to be expansive and curious, and maybe even patient, which is not a strong suit for me personally. But, I want to see a world in which we are taking care of ourselves, so then we can be more expansive with how we can take care of each other.
I think, for me, movement is how human beings engage with life. Like even just talking right now, it's a movement. This gesture is a movement. And for me, there have been a few times in my life where it felt really hard to engage with life. And moving helped me connect to the will to live because of grief and hopelessness. And one of the things I wanted to say about how movement supports resilience is often when you're in that place, grief, depression, despair, it actually interferes with your ability to move. That's a real physical, biochemical thing. It's harder to move. But what's also fascinating is that physical movement is one of the only things that seems to repair that will to live and that drive to engage with life. And so resilience sometimes looks like, I can remember a time in my life where it was all I could do to try to get myself through 3 warm-up songs, 10 minutes. And it took me a few months to be able to finish 10 minutes of dancing to try to get back into that feeling of wanting to engage with life and to trust that movement can be something that helps us tap into that part of ourselves.
All right, well, we now have a little something special for you guys. Kelly is going to lead us through a short movement break of very
You're
short.
going to do it. You're going to do it. I have total faith. Okay, so if you are able to stand and willing to stand, I'm going to encourage you to stand up. This can absolutely be done seated. We're going to mostly be using our upper body. If you are watching this live or later, you can absolutely do this at home or wherever you are. And I'm going to teach you a few movements that people around the world use to connect through joy. And it's going to be, let's see. So you're going to be my models because I got this microphone. So one of the ways that we connect through joy is keeping a beat. So I'm going to give you a beat. It's going to be a stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Let's find it together. Stomp, clap, stomp, clap. Let's find it literally together. Let's create the beat. And if you can't stomp, you can slap, clap. Yeah, with confidence. You found it. Now turn around and clap at somebody else, not just me. All right, you nailed it. It's time for level 2. Okay, very good. So another way that we connect through movement is laughter. And I'm not going to make you laugh. But, by accident I did. Okay, but I want you to connect to the energy of shaking. Because when we laugh with friends, when we laugh with strangers, our bodies shake. And just see, thank you for that. Just see what you can shake in your body. Shake it out. Yeah. All right. We can also celebrate. So if you've ever seen a kid get something they want, what's the hand gesture they go to? Yeah, yes. So we're going to do this, like, yes, 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 yes. And you can make some noise. Yes, 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 yes. 2 more. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, 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 yes. All right. Now I want you to throw some sunshine or some good wishes or some confetti at some folks you've been spending time together with today. So I keep my confetti here in my heart or under my jacket. Take some confetti, some sunshine, and throw it at somebody. Send them something good. Send them something that they need. Yes, a little for you, Danielle. Okay, yes. All right, one more to connect, and you're going to have to turn around and really be with one another. Hand to the heart, and think in your head, you're here. And then a little wave, I'm so glad you're here. This is like the message that brings joy to people more than anything else. Turn around and find someone you know or a stranger. Hand to your heart, you're here. Give them a wave, I'm so glad you're here.
So glad you're here.
You're here. I see you. I'm so glad you're here. All right, you know what? You should give one more. You should give some of that love to yourself. So I'm going to ask you to touch your body with a sense of gratitude that you are alive. Gratitude for the breath, gratitude for the body. I like that movement too. I saw that, yeah. Touch your head. Take a breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Touch your shoulders, chest. Inhale, touch your belly. Exhale, touch your legs. And let's do that together. Inhale. Exhale. Thank you, heart. Thank you, lungs. Inhale. Exhale. Thank you, body. And the last joy move is going to be to show some appreciation. How about some claps and some slaps and some woo! Turn around and give it to each other.
Thank you so much.
Do you feel better? Did we demonstrate the feel better effect? Maybe? Yeah, maybe. I hope so.
Let's give a big thanks to Kelly and Robin for being here today. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.